Level 1, the civilian pilot. You're sitting in a coffee shop when the news anchors start screaming. They don't know what's happening yet. Nobody does. You watch the reports on your phone. Riots in the streets. Military roadblocks. Something about a virus. You think it's contained. You think the government has it under control. You're wrong. You've been flying commercial routes for 15 years. You know every runway from Miami to Seattle. You know the regulations, the procedures, the safety protocols. You know how to land a 737 in a crosswind. You don't know how to land it when the air traffic control towers go silent. That happens on day 3. You're at 30,000 feet with 200 passengers when all the radios stop transmitting. No voices. No static. Nothing. Your co-pilot looks at you with his eyes wide. You tell him to check the equipment. He does. Everything works. The world below just stopped talking back. You see smoke rising from 3 cities. You see cars abandoned on highways in perfect grids, doors hanging open like dead mouths. You make the decision to descend. You pick Denver International. It's the largest airport you can reach. You have enough fuel. You call Mayday 17 times. Nobody answers. You land a fully loaded Boeing 737 without clearance, without guidance, on a runway that might have obstacles you can't see. Your hands shake through the entire descent. Your co-pilot is praying out loud. You touch down smooth. That's the last smooth thing that will happen for a very long time. You taxi to the terminal. There are no ground crew. There are no lights. There are no people. There is only silence and the bodies of things that used to be people shambling across the tarmac. Your passengers scream. You tell them to stay calm and stay inside. Some listen. Some don't. The ones who don't make it about 50 yards before they're pulled down. You watch it happen. You have 247 people depending on you and you have no idea what to do. You radio the tower one more time out of habit. Someone answers. A military voice. They tell you to evacuate the aircraft immediately and proceed to Hangar 7. They tell you armed soldiers will be waiting. They tell you not to stop or look back. You do exactly what they say. Level 2, the transport pilot. You survived the collapse by being useful. The military found you on day 17, holed up in a maintenance hangar with 47 survivors. A major asked if you could fly. You said yes. He pointed to a Chinook helicopter and said get it in the air. You hadn't flown anything with rotors before. You learned in 4 hours using a manual and a prayer. You got it in the air. You've been flying ever since. Now you're a chief warrant officer with 300 flight hours in the new world. You fly cargo missions for the remaining command structure. Food, ammunition, medical supplies, people who are important enough to evacuate. You operate out of a military base in Colorado that still has electricity and walls. The walls are 12 feet high and reinforced. The base is self-sufficient with hydroelectric power and functioning greenhouses. You fly into the dead zones twice a week. These are cities that have been completely overrun. Zombie populations in the thousands. You can't count them. You swoop in at 200 feet, 50 feet above the rooftops. Your crew throws supply packages to isolated survivors. It's fast and dangerous. The zombies react to the noise. They look up. They claw at the air. Some of them are shockingly fast. You've lost 2 helicopters to them jumping and grabbing the landing skids. You don't know how they're strong enough to pull down a Chinook. You've learned to fly patterns that minimize exposure time. In and out in 90 seconds. Your crew chief is a kid from Nebraska, 22 years old, named Garrett. He's thrown supplies 100 times. He's never been scratched. He's the best crew chief you've ever had. You think of him as the son you never had. On a Wednesday, you're flying into Pittsburgh. The intel says National Guard units are holed up in a hospital. They need medical supplies and ammunition. You approach at standard altitude. You see the building. Everything looks normal. You're 3 seconds from landing when Garrett screams. The infected have come through the hospital from inside. 200 of them pour onto the roof. The soldiers are fighting. They're dying. One turns and points a rifle at your helicopter. He's aiming at Garrett. You understand immediately. He doesn't want to be rescued. He doesn't want to turn. He shoots twice. Garrett falls backward out of the helicopter. You watch him tumble through empty air. You don't land. You can't land. You bank hard and climb. You hear gunshots hitting your fuselage. You fly back to base with a dead crew chief and the knowledge that the hospital is gone. Level 3, the combat pilot. You got combat training because you had flight hours and the military needed pilots who could fight. They taught you to fly a Black Hawk gunship. They taught you how to aim a minigun and identify targets and make split-second decisions about what counts as a threat. You're a captain now with 300 combat flight hours. You've killed in ways you never imagined. Swarms of infected attacking military convoys. Villages that went dark and stopped responding. A settlement of 500 people that started showing infection symptoms. You called in coordinates. You made the decision. The decision made the problem go away. You don't know if you made the right choice. You will never know. You have a call sign now. The pilots call you Reaper. You don't like it. You don't have a choice. You fly patrol missions in red zones where civilization has completely collapsed. No military presence. No civilian authority. Just infected and whatever humans are feral enough to survive there. You fly alone mostly. Solo Black Hawk missions. You have targeting systems that let you see heat signatures from 5 miles away. You have weapons that can rain down precision strikes. You have authority to engage anything that moves. That's the official rule. The real rule is more complicated. You've learned to distinguish between infected and human heat signatures. Infected run hot. Their metabolisms are accelerated. Humans run cooler. Sometimes you see armed groups. Humans who've decided the military is the enemy. You report their positions. You don't engage unless you receive orders. You follow the chain of command. You have to. That's what keeps the system from fracturing completely. You report. You wait. Sometimes you get orders to strike. Sometimes you don't. You never find out what happened to the groups you reported. They might have surrendered. They might have been killed in combat. You don't follow up. You'd go insane if you followed up on all of it. You fly another patrol the next day. Level 4, the base commander. You've been promoted to major. You command flight operations for the entire western sector. 50 pilots. 30 aircraft. A support crew of 220 people. You don't fly anymore. You manage logistics, schedules, maintenance, personnel. You manage pilots who are braking in ways that don't always show. One pilot crashed a Black Hawk into a mountainside last month. The maintenance logs say the aircraft was flight-worthy. You know what really happened. He flew it into the mountain on purpose. He left a note on his bunk explaining why he couldn't make one more decision about who lives and dies. You file the report as mechanical failure. You don't tell his family anything different. They get full military honors and a flag and a letter from the Secretary of Defense. You brief the command staff every morning. You report flight hours, sortie numbers, ammunition expenditures, fuel consumption, personnel status. Numbers. Everything reduces to numbers. You stop seeing pilots and see flight resources. You stop seeing missions and see operational parameters. You tell yourself this is necessary. The numbers are easier to carry than the weight of it all. You meet with pilots one-on-one in your office. You evaluate their psychological fitness. Some are clearly broken. Trembling hands. 1,000-yard stares. One pilot attempted suicide 3 days after you grounded him. You visit him in the medical facility. You tell him you made the right call. You're not sure if that's true. You walk back to your office. You look at the operational schedule for tomorrow. 50 flight paths plotted across a digital map. Each represents men and women you sent into the air. Some will come back. Some might not. You authorize the flights anyway. That's the job. Level 5, the sector commander. You're a colonel now. You command flight operations for the western United States. 200 pilots. 120 aircraft. The base you command is one of 7 Continental command centers. You communicate with the other commanders weekly. You compare notes about infected movement patterns, survivor locations, and resource depletion rates. The situation is not improving. Human population is declining. You have demographic projections. They show human extinction in 80 years if nothing changes. You don't share these projections with the pilots. You tell them they're making a difference. You tell them they're saving lives. Both things are probably true. Both things are probably irrelevant. You authorized a bombing run on a settlement in Nevada showing infection symptoms. 2,000 people. 10 aircraft. The problem was eliminated. 6 months later, you found out the settlement was dealing with water contamination. The symptoms were dehydration and malnutrition. They weren't infected. You killed 2,000 uninfected people on bad intelligence. You file a report on the report. You recommend changes to the intelligence gathering process. Nothing changes. You authorize another bombing run the next week. This time the intelligence is correct. You saved 3 million people by killing 10,000. The math works. The math doesn't help you sleep. You take pills now. Sleeping pills. Anxiety pills. Everything at this level is on something. Everyone is managing something. Fine is a word that means something different now. Level 6, the Continental Commander. You're a brigadier general commanding all military aviation operations across North America. Your decisions affect policy on 3 countries' worth of territory. You have an office that used to belong to a Fortune 500 CEO. You have secure communication lines to the president. You command 2,000 pilots across 11 military bases. You've ordered the evacuation and abandonment of Dallas, Houston, Phoenix, and Las Vegas. You've ordered the execution of 137 people who showed infection symptoms. Some were soldiers. Some were civilians. Some were children. All of them had to die before infection spread. You authorized those deaths. You signed the paperwork. You sleep in 3-hour increments on a cot in your office. Your wife left. She took your daughter to Canada. You don't blame her. You brief the president once a week in a secure room. You present drone footage and casualty estimates and infection spread models. The president asks questions. You answer honestly. Sometimes the president overrides your recommendations. You don't argue. You implement the orders. You are the mechanism by which decisions become reality. Your pilots die executing those decisions. You attend their funerals. You tell families their loved one made a difference. You believe that. You have to believe that. Without that belief, the system would collapse. 3 million people would die in the resulting chaos within a week. So you stay. You function. You make decisions about who lives and dies on a continental scale. You know you'll do it all again tomorrow.